not one, but two legitimate reports, including one in the last 12 hours, linking the Giants to Corbin Burnes, arguably the second best player available this offseason besides Juan Soto. It makes too much sense to ignore.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes actually 3 days a week for now, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show since prior to the 2019 season, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, or 3 days a week for now. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started is by connecting the dots here. I mean, this first rumor was on the 26th. And when I say rumor, it's actually more of a report. The 26th of November. So this was a while ago, and I don't think we haven't talked about it. I know we haven't talked about it. So the 26th was last Saturday? Yeah. I don't even know. I'm turned around. No, it was last Tuesday, excuse me. So a week and a day ago. The report was from Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, and what he said in this article that came out on the 26th on MLB.com was, quote, "The Giants, who must now replace Snell in their rotation, are believed to have significant interest in Corbin Burnes," end quote. And then today, John Paul Morosi, also of MLB.com, wrote the following on Twitter. He said, quote, "The Giants are interested in Corbin Burnes, as reported by @Feinsand," which is Mark Feinsand. And then Morosi goes on to say, "Unlike some teams pursuing Burnes, the Giants are not linked to Juan Soto and can allocate greater financial resources to Burnes now. Then again, Soto and Burnes have the same agent. Burnes likely will have greater leverage if he signs after Soto, because by then the Soto runners-up will have more bandwidth to make a big offer," end quote. And so, yeah, I think he's right about that, unfortunately, that you know, Soto may be holding up the market for other top free agents, because those teams that miss out on Soto will then be potentially in the market for Corbin Burnes, whereas now they're focused on Soto. So we may have to wait on this, but I think where there's smoke, there's fire. When you get two solid reporters in Mark Feinsand and John Morosi reporting that the Giants are interested in Burnes, I believe it. And also, it just makes too much sense in a lot of ways. You got Buster Posey out here talking about prioritizing run prevention, essentially, pitching, defense. And Corbin Burnes, born in Bakersfield, California, went to St. Mary's in Moraga? I don't know how to say the name of where that is, but I believe it's, northeast. I'm probably the only one listening or talking, that doesn't know the location of St. Mary's College, but that's where he went. And so very familiar with the area, born in California. I don't think never rule out the Dodgers for anything. I wouldn't rule them out on Soto, but after signing Blake Snell, I don't think the Dodgers are probably the team that's likely to get Corbin Burnes. And so if you're the Giants and you have, you should be able to have an easier time attracting pitchers. And sure enough, that's like a fact. There's no doubt that it's a good place to pitch. Pitchers love to come here. And if you, I don't know, it just makes too much sense. Now, the one downside is the qualifying offer is attached to Corbin Burnes. And so the Giants would have to surrender their 2nd and 5th round picks in the 2025 draft in order to sign Corbin Burnes, in addition to the money that they would have to pay to him. And they would also lose $1 million in international bonus pool money, which is a significant amount relative to the overall pool of money that they have to spend. Now, that being said, looking at ESPN and MLB trade rumors, and I also want to look at Fangraphs in terms of the contract projections for Corbin Burnes. MLB trade rumors predicts 7 years, $200 million, and ranks him as the 2nd best free agent behind Soto. ESPN, these are done by Kylie McDaniel, who does a really good job. Generally, I'm not going to, ESPN is often not the greatest resource for the most accurate information, but hiring Kylie McDaniel to do baseball along with Jeff Passan, they're actually now kind of a hotbed of good information for baseball. Anyway, Kylie McDaniel predicts Corbin Burnes 7 years, $225 million. So that's both sources predicting 7 years, $200+ million. And then Fangraphs, done by Ben Clemens over there, has Corbin Burnes as the number 4 free agent. And the prediction is 7 years, $196 million. So all three in the 7-year, $200-ish million range, with those AAVs ranging from $28 million a year to $32.1 million a year. So call it $30 million a year. And I think that is what comes out to $200 million. No, that would be $210. $30 million a year, somewhere in that range, 7 years, boom, sign on the dotted line. I'm in 100% because the Giants need talent, and Corbin Burnes is very talented. He is, for a reason, one of the top. I mean, it's not very often you get a pitcher expected to command a $200 million contract, and that's Corbin Burnes. He's a true ace. There's been some concerning decline in strikeout rate over the years. This year, I think a career low and close to league average, but he still is just tough to hit. And what encourages me is that the velocity's not down at all. So I don't really know what's going on with the decline in strikeout rate, which has been pretty steady over the last 3 years or so. But when I look and he's still throwing 98, I'm not that concerned. And then so if all of a sudden you've got Corbin, he's legitimately a guy who you might say, okay, you put him ahead of Logan Webb in that rotation. And there's not that many guys that you would say that about. But whether it's Burnes and Webb or Webb and Burnes, that would be, and Webb is signed for 4 more seasons, counting, starting in 2025. And then Burnes would theoretically be, 7 years or so. I think it makes a lot of sense. I would not be surprised that all of this happens. And there was actually a mistake on MLB Trade Rumors when they first wrote about this. They said it has to do with the Giants' payroll, and that the reporting is that the Giants plan to reduce their payroll. And they were saying, well, their 2024 opening day payroll was $208 million, and they currently are at a projected 182. But that's wrong. That's wrong. They made a mistake because luxury tax payroll is calculated differently than non-luxury tax payroll. It's a different animal. Right now, the Giants' projected luxury tax payroll is $182 million. It includes things like estimated player benefits to be paid $17.5 million. that doesn't get counted in the other form of payroll. And so you have to distinguish between the two. So anyway, they're not at 182 right now. They're at 154.8 approximately. And so, yeah, you could add a $30 million contract and still be at, 185. So you would still be significantly under. You'd be like 20 million under still, even if you added a $30 million a year player like Corbin Burnes. So anyway, we'll wrap up that discussion and get into a hypothetical trade thrown out by ESPN's Kylie McDaniel in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL season or action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So I would just head on over, place that $5 bet on the most heavy favorite I can find, and then get that $150 in bonus bets if that wins. So that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, as promised, we're going to get into a hypothetical trade that I thought was really interesting, thrown out by ESPN's Kylie McDaniel. We're also going to get into, yes, Farhan Zaidi reportedly in talks to rejoin the Dodgers. So I'm going to get into that and just what is my reaction, what is like the reaction I expect from fans, because I would expect that to happen when you hear a report like that. So anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, 3 days a week for now, but daily for most of the season. Like 10 months out of the year, every day, Monday through Friday. So, yeah, so I wrote on Twitter like that MLB trade, and I like added them, like, hey, MLB trade rumors, you're making a mistake in this article, and they fixed it. So you're welcome. Not you, just the general public was being misled because it's actually quite important. They were saying that the Giants were currently sitting at $180 million in payroll, so if they added a Corbin Burnes, then they would already be back at last year's payroll, so it doesn't seem likely that they're going to sign him, or at least they would have no wiggle room to do any other moves if, in fact, they plan on reducing payroll, or that they would have to trade guys. But they were overestimating their current payroll by like $27 million, so it was no small mistake. But they fixed it, so that's good. I feel good that we pointed that out to them and that they corrected the mistake. Anyway, so the Giants could absolutely add Corbin Burnes. It would limit what they could do after that if, in fact, they're planning to cut payroll. We don't know by how much. It's disappointing. Like, I don't blame anyone for being disappointed or upset about that. But there are still moves they could make to cut some more payroll and add some more players. Mike Yastrzemski, they agreed to a $9.25 million contract to avoid arbitration. He could be traded. There's other players who could be traded. And, it would probably take them out of like a Willy Adames, because that would be another qualifying offer player. And then the penalties are even stiffer. Like, you get more penalties when you do that. But like Corbin Burnes plus Ha-Sung Kim, or plus a trade, maybe a trade in there. And that's where we get to this other idea, which is, I thought, a really fascinating and realistic trade. You don't often get realistic. That's the beauty of Kylie McDaniel, is that it actually sounds kind of realistic when you look at the return, because it made me uneasy looking at what he's saying the Giants would have to give up to get this player. But the player he's talking about is none other than Brent Rooker. And man, the A's payroll is laughable. They have an estimated $35 million payroll going into next year at this moment in time. $35 million. That's crazy. There's lots of players that are earning more than that alone, and that's the entire A's projected payroll right now. Anyway, Brent Rooker is under team control for 3 additional seasons. This is the kind of time when the A's they trade these guys at peak value, and Brent Rooker has broken out in a major way as just an offensive monster in the last 2 seasons with Oakland. Kind of found him on the scrap heap, and he hit 39 home runs in 2024 in just 145 games. So missed some time and still hit 39 tanks, and was worth 5.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement, was about 64% above league average offensively. He played 131 games at DH and just 14 in the corner outfield. So this is like kind of a pure DH, and it's just a hypothetical trade thrown out by Kiley and McDaniel. So they basically just were throwing out trade candidates, like players, and they mentioned Brent Rooker, and Kiley McDaniel picked the Giants as a fit. And he said, it might be awkward to trade Rooker within the same media market, but it's a nice fit to consolidate the roster for the newly aggressive Giants helmed by Buster Posey. I don't know what that means. They haven't done anything yet, so I don't know how they're newly aggressive. The price should be steep, for sure, for Rooker. At least one prospect firmly in the top 100, but the risk of a 30-year-old designated hitter coming off an outlier career year should tamp down the demand from what the spreadsheets might say. Stitching together a collection of intriguing young players near the majors who have already made their debut, something like Marco Luciano, Hayden Birdsong, Carson Wisenhunt, and Landon Roop, would give the A's a nice collection of young talent, but I doubt the Giants would include the headliner the A's want in first baseman Bryce Eldridge. So Kiley McDaniel, he worked for the Braves. He knows what he's talking about here, and he's also a scout by trade. Brent Rooker, this was an outlier year, but he also did it kind of the year before. He put up a 488 slugging, a 242 isolated power, hit 30 home runs in 137 games the year before. So if you look at 2023 and 2024, 1,140 plate appearances, 272 average, 348 on base, 528 slugging, a 146 weighted runs created plus, meaning about 46% above league average. And again, you're talking about a guy who's under team control for 3 seasons, 25, 6, and 7. So that return makes me uncomfortable. Marco Luciano, Hayden Birdsong, Carson Wisenhunt, and Landon Roop, but 3 years of a total masher, that's probably somewhat realistic. You often see like unrealistic trade scenarios, but this one a little bit. So it makes me uneasy, and it probably makes A's fans uneasy because, we are more intimately familiar with these young players. And if you're on the outside looking in, if you're the A's, if you're an A's fan, you're intimately familiar with Brent Rooker and how awesome he's been. And you're like, who are these guys? Wisenhunt. They've probably never heard of him. So Landon Roop, they're like, who the heck is that? So I think it's a relatively realistic scenario, and one that ultimately I would probably pass on because of what he's saying, like a 30-year-old designated hitter. And so the Giants, they just signed like Jorge Soler last offseason, and they didn't have to give up Marco Luciano, Hayden Birdsong, Carson Wisenhunt, Landon. Like, you could just pay a little bit of money. The thing is, Rooker was so good. 5 wins above replacement as a designated hitter is very hard to do. So I do kind of agree, actually, that it was a bit of an outlier year. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that the Giants need to find ways to get some offense into their lineup. Not sure he fits the mold of exactly what Posey's spoken about in terms of, I think he hasn't said it out loud, but he's mentioned actually like lower OPS and more like runs batted in. But worth noting, Brent Rooker drove in 112 runs on the A's, who didn't have a great team around him. So actually, I do not often search the leaderboards for runs batted in because it's not totally, but largely team dependent. But yeah, that was tied for 4th in Major League Baseball with Willy Adames, who happens to also be a good fit. It was Judge, Ohtani, Jose Ramirez, and then Brent Rooker and Willy Adames tied for 4th with runs batted in. So I don't know. Rooker strikes out a lot, and I'm not sure you want to give up that much young talent, especially the pitching talent with Birdsong and Wisenhunt and Roop. Like, that would be a lot. But I could definitely see Luciano being someone they look to trade. There's not really a fit for him. I mean, unless you're gonna try to keep letting him break through by having Yaz out there, but not being committed to him long term. So creating that opportunity, I think maybe they do that, but also wouldn't be shocked to see them make a trade package that is headlined by Marco Luciano and perhaps 1 or 2 of their talented young pitchers, but 3, that's what makes it, like, if you take away one of these guys, maybe I could see it from the Giants' perspective. I don't think it's unfair. I just think that's a lot of young pitching to give up for a DH in particular, who's already over 30 and only under team control. It is a while, 3 years, but it's not like 6, So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that, but I thought it was fun to take a look at. So coming up in just a minute, what do we make of this? Farhan Zaidi reportedly in talks to rejoin the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, all right, here we go. We're going to get into this hot topic, inflammatory topic. I don't know quite the word to describe what to make of this, but Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic and Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic reporting that the Dodgers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, are talking to their former general manager and ex-San Francisco Giants president of baseball operations Farhan Zaidi about returning to the organization, league sources told The Athletic on yesterday. No deal has been finalized, but the role Zaidi would play in the Dodgers front office is unclear. Sorry, not but and. No deal has been finalized, and the role is unclear. But the Dodgers would be a logical landing spot for the former Athletics, Dodgers, and Giants executive who lost his job with San Francisco in September. So, I don't know. I mean, they go on to point out that they upset the Dodgers in 2021 by winning the division, but they failed to make the postseason or even finish above 500 at any other year of Zaidi's tenure. He was replaced by Buster Posey. For as much as the Giants sought to add a star to center Zaidi's vision around, they often found themselves on the outside looking in. I mean, pretty much always. They landed Matt Chapman, Blake Snell. They still finished 80 and 82, and then Snell just signed with the Dodgers. So anyway, I just think the reaction to this, like, people would, at least like online, I don't know, like normal people might just be like, no, that makes sense. But I feel like you'd see a big kind of reaction. And if you read the comments section by like a tweet by Alex Pavlovich saying he's confirming the reports that Zaidi has joined the Dodgers or something, it would be extremely negative in there. So I would not even go in there. Actually, I probably would, to be honest, just to see. But what people have to remember is that this guy got treated poorly here. Like, first of all, he's looking for work, right? The Giants let him go. He's a very talented executive, and the Giants said goodbye. You're not welcome here anymore. Turn in your badge, And so he can do whatever he wants. And going back to LA is very logical. But, just amplify the conspiracy theorists out there, who we literally from the jump, we're talking about he's a Dodgers spy or whatever. I mean, none of this was to be taken seriously at all, but that he was sabotaging from within the Giants to benefit the Dodgers, which of course was insane. But that kind of stuff I think would resurface if he rejoined the Dodgers. Be like, well, you just kind of tanked the Giants and now you're going back to this powerhouse organization. So he fulfilled his mission of destroying the Giants from within for 6 years, which he didn't destroy them. I say he definitely left them in better shape than he found them, but it was definitely a failure of a tenure. Like it says in the article, we don't need the article to say this, but they had one above 500 season in 6 years. It happened to be a 107 win season, but still, it's just not good enough. And then that one postseason appearance resulted in a first round exit. So yeah, but there were positives. I'm just kind of saying brace yourselves for if Farhan Zaidi does join the Dodgers, because that is to me what appears likely to happen. And I think the Dodgers will be better off for it. I do just want to say, because a lot of people, when Zaidi, the negativity started immediately about Zaidi, and I remember, all these years ago, back in 2019, having to defend Farhan Zaidi from these conspiracy theories, and some people kept pointing out that they didn't replace Farhan Zaidi, and that meant that they didn't actually value him. And I said, actually, wait a second. Andrew Friedman, the Dodgers president of baseball operations, really had some comments saying he's a genius and we hate to lose him, and I just wish he went somewhere that wasn't in our division. Some might say, oh, he's just saying that, but I, of course, wholeheartedly believe him. He was, after all, Zaidi was Andrew Friedman's hand-picked choice to be the general manager of the Dodgers, and then they were eventually extremely good and have continued to be good ever since. And also think of it from Zaidi's perspective. Why, there's this snowball effect right now that everybody wants to join the Dodgers, from players to, I would imagine, anyone who's trying to work in baseball. Why would you not want to join the Dodgers? And so that's a problem. If you're the Giants, is that, Blake Snell, it's just a dream to join the Dodgers. Anytime you get you can join the Dodgers or you can join the Giants on equal terms, why are you picking the Giants? Give me a reason. There's if you just hate LA traffic, you don't like warm weather. I mean, it's tough because any player is going to want to play for, with Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Blake Snell and their whole freaking roster of superstars. And from a front office perspective, if you're Zaidi, you're going back potentially to a place that you're very familiar with, a place where you helped build that organization. And so you probably still feel those ties to a lot of players. We don't know exactly who, I do know that he was the guy who got Max Muncy there in LA. But anyway, I mean, from a Giants fan perspective, just remember, he got treated pretty poorly in the media. Look, at the end of the day, it's a tough business, although we'll see if Buster Posey fails, if he gets the same kind of treatment. Obviously, he's warranted more goodwill. He's the opposite of Zaidi in that sense, that he's a lifelong Giant, whereas Zaidi was kind of viewed as a not lifelong Dodger, but a big part of the Dodgers, which they're the enemy. And so you bring someone in from the Dodgers. It's kind of like the Jock Peterson effect. It's like, yeah, that was fun or whatever, I guess. But once he leaves, it's like, oh no, we still hate that guy because he's a Dodger, which I get. But I don't know. I think it's logical that he would go back there. And I'm not surprised at all that he's in demand. And he'll be an asset probably to the Dodgers if he goes there. And so you'll have to contend with Zaidi making savvy moves that you probably yourself won't be making because you don't have him anymore. And so we'll see. Ultimately, the big takeaway here is that it remains to be seen if a Buster Posey-led Giants front office can do any better than the Farhan Zaidi. I mean, eventually they've got to improve. Eventually, every team goes through cycles where they're bad and then they're good. Although the goal is to be like the Dodgers and not ever be bad. And the Giants, to Zaidi's credit, they were never bad. They were at worst mediocre, but almost always mediocre outside of 2021. So anyway, I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. So yeah, I mean, the big story of the day is this Corbin Burnes stuff. The winter meetings get going early next week, so that is exciting. Hopefully Soto makes his decision. It seems the Giants are not involved at all in that, which is surprising to me, and disappointing to me, but it seems that way, and I wouldn't be surprised if Corbin Burnes and other top free agents just wait on Soto because of exactly what was said earlier, that all those teams that missed out on him will be sitting on a pile of money and perhaps ready to spend it on other players such as Corbin Burnes. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Giants just came in with a strong offer for Burnes and that it actually would be a desirable destination for him given the California roots, given the Dodgers are unlikely to be involved. Padres very unlikely to be involved given they're trying to reduce payroll even from where they currently are by a lot. So they need to trade away some players. And that's a whole other story that we could get into and maybe talk with Javier Reyes from Locked On Padres about what are they going to do to cut payroll? Is there any players the Giants might be able to snag away from San Diego? So anyway, coming up later this week, we're going to get into this golden at-bat thing. Have you heard about this? A idea that has generated, quote, buzz among owners in baseball, and it's very unpopular from what I've seen on Twitter. So we will get into that later on this week. Giants hiring a new pro scouting director and more, and any other rumors and reports that come up regarding the Giants. So we'll be back on Thursday and Friday this week and maybe do a mailbag as well ahead of the winter meeting. So thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen today, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.